to share some ideas with you about how to teach in the Gen Ed core. And fortunately, that's really simple. What you need is to be a compelling, charismatic sage on the stage, wowing your students with your good looks, wit, grasp of popular culture, and academic deftness and experience, probably in that descending order of importance. Bantering with the class is a bonus. The sage on the stage model has drawn lots of pedagogical fire over the years, but sometimes it's what students still expect. And the difficulty of that is, of course, that most of that stuff you've got to be born with, and most of that stuff most of us aren't born with. Thing is, if you're watching this talk, you probably don't fit this profile, unless you're Aaron Johnson and watching it just because you're my friend. Instead, you're daunted by that model, as I was daunted when, as a fledgling English instructor, I measured myself against Robin Williams from Dead Poets Society and found myself very, very wanting. If you're an awesomely magnetic sage of the stage who utters translucent pearls of profundity and hilarity, go do that. For the rest of us, there are, fortunately, other ways. Probably most importantly, take the course seriously. Your students take their cues about that from you, at least to some degree. General education is an extension of high school in their experience. They don't feel as if they're zeroing in on some area of interest to them. So we too can find it unenergizing talking to people who don't know much about our discipline and trying to convince them into caring enough to learn. They can tell when we don't feel energized. Find ways to communicate to them that this course matters to you. It can be as simple as, I was thinking the other day about this course, because that says you actually think about it outside of class. Or depending on what you teach, you may have a favorite reptile, a favorite computer program, a favorite historical character, a favorite chemical reaction. Emote when you teach it. Show them the insights that your disciplinary perspective offers on everyday life. Math people see the world differently from English people, music people from chemistry people. Viewed from your perspective, certain stuff just springs into focus. Run with that. Embrace your inner nerd. They need to know how the stuff you're teaching them illuminates their reality. In grad school, my wife Rachel and I were members of a Christian graduate group that kind of met across disciplines. So we would do social events with meteorologists and entomologists and geologists, and it's hard to take a hike the same way again. They're pointing out cloud formations, well, that would not be cloud formations, but rock formations, cloud formations, interesting facts about the mating habits of bees. This is our cachet. The other day in Western literature, a student answered one of my questions in perfect iambic hexameter. And I walked to the board and I wrote out the whole wrote the whole answer, and I scanned it and explained what just happened, and something clicked. Hexameter wasn't just a term on a test anymore. Someone actually did it without knowing. Related to that, say complex things simply. Now, you might not need reminding to say it simply. You might feel like you have to dumb down information for your students. You might feel mired in simplicity. But don't just say the simple things about your discipline. Say the complex things. Give them the good stuff. Saying them simply is the trick. Yeah, that's what makes a good communicator. C.S. Lewis was very good at this. I'm teaching some stuff by him at the moment, and people think they're smarter after reading his work because they feel as though they're in contact with something above their heads. You want that in a gen ed class. You want people leaving feeling as though they can handle something they couldn't handle before. Take the students seriously. Hear their voices early and often in a place of honor. Find them a way to contribute, especially if they feel like this course has nothing to do with what they're good at. In my freshman writing classes, I try to get good student examples read in class on the second day. I try to have examples up on PowerPoint a few days later, kind of like publishing them. I mean, we talk about it in those terms. If you've got 200 people in a class, you might consider an early assignment that your TAs can cull from, and they can pass along especially good work for you to use as examples in class. It's also good to hand students expertise. I ask them how computers work. I asked them about student life. I asked them about dorm wars. We had a great conversation about dorm wars. They know more than me about some things, and it's good for them to feel that. It validates them in the classroom, and it doesn't erode my general authority. Nobody's going to come after me about how I interpret Boccaccio, but they like to score a couple points off me by knowing who Jay-Z is. Like them, and gain energy from them. I don't care how powerless you are in your department, how droning you are as an information deliverer, how incompetent you are with PowerPoint. If you care about your students, they will care about you. Everyone wants to be liked. Everyone wants to put a bounce in someone else's step. During my first semester at Lee, my courses were not going particularly well. I didn't feel like I was connecting, and I kept seeing one of my students around campus. Her job was to deliver food to faculty meetings. Self-confidence was pretty low, and I just wanted to slink by with a nod and a smile. She had seen me at my unflattering worst in front of people. I was kind of embarrassed. And I thought, even if I don't matter to her, my position does, so I should be enthusiastic. So I greeted her heartily every time, against my grain, and I would say, "Another great job serving cookies, Kim." And I heard about it in a thank you note after graduation. I may have been remembering Mr. Northup, my geography teacher in undergrad. He was not a very good speaker. He was not a particularly attractive man. He didn't strike me as competent in his field. I'm not sure he had a field. But one day in geography, he found out that I had been an MK in East Africa and belabored me with questions for about 35 minutes. And there was one time where he paused, and you could tell that he was racking his brain for another question to ask me, and he wasn't getting one, and he was upset because he knew that it was his job to unlock the riches in my brain. And I had never felt that before in a classroom, and maybe not since. Teach to as many different learning styles as possible. Our English majors can be monochromatic sometimes, pretty introverted, pretty visual, so I can get into the habit of pitching my teaching at their level. Read this book, write this paper, have this discussion. Gen Ed classes are by definition heterogeneous. The more classroom exercises, the better. See it, hear it, touch it, smell it if you can, so that's sometimes hard to do. Assignments too, stuff that's graded. Give objective and subjective assignments, multiple choice and writing and class presentation. Give every kind of student learner the chance to do well, because you have about every kind in your class. Be as clear as possible about expectations, even to the point of differentiating class procedures and assignments from other disciplines. Most of your students don't know how yours works how your discipline works at the college level. They write other kinds of papers, they take other kinds of tests, they do other kinds of assignments. Give clear instructions and just try to make that contrast with what the other things they might be doing. I always say to my freshmen, on the day of reckoning when I explain how grading works, this is the way my grading scale works. It's an English grading scale. It works differently from your objective exams. 98 doesn't mean that you missed 2 points. 98 means that angels were singing when I graded your assignment, because I mark up from a B, not down from 100. And that helps the pain. It doesn't take it all away. Finally, be professionally personal, strategically vulnerable. This is probably true everywhere, but here, especially at Lee, Students want to feel as if they know their professor. And the problem with Gen Ed is that in the Gen Ed core, they probably can't get to know you. Or you can't get to know them, at least. They will still try to know you anyway. They will know your habits. They'll know your vocal clutter. They'll know your facial tics, the kinds of discussion and exam and quiz questions you ask, your sense of humor. Biographical information will stick in their minds. Students across campus greet my 4-year-old son very warmly, as if they know him. Like, Toby! They've never met him before. I just keep them updated on the strange things he says. As a student, I once chose a particular section of a class entirely because I heard the instructor told stories about his baby son. Now, don't be unprofessionally personal and neglect to tie it organically to your course material. Don't get up there and chat for half an hour about your summer vacation. They don't care about you that much. Or if they do, maybe there is something wrong. Show them the specific you, the perspective that engages with your course material. So this seems to me what it boils down to. Trick them into thinking they're getting the full benefits of upper-level classes. The personal contact with the professor, the Gnostic secrets of the discipline, your painstaking attention to their individual presence and intellectual progress. Even if they get only a little of that, it's that flavor, and they're getting something to which they and you assign value. Thanks.